Imagine trying to predict exactly what thousands of sweaty, totally unpredictable people will want to listen to at like 2 a.m. in a dark basement. And you have to do this 6 months from now.
Right, which is, I mean, it sounds completely impossible.
Exactly. You can't just, pull up a weather radar for that. You can't look at a satellite map and point to this giant green blob heading east and say, oh, look, a storm of techno is going to hit the clubs on Thursday.
Yeah, if only it were that easy.
Right. But we actually have something on the table today for this deep dive that claims it can do exactly that. We managed to get our hands on this internal confidential blueprint. It's for an editorial intelligence briefing called Underground Stories.
And I just have to say, this document completely shatters the stereotype of the music industry. People think it's just this chaotic landscape of gut feelings and late night partying.
Oh, 100%. Just vibes and chaos.
Right. But this document treats underground electronic music like a serious, data-driven industry. I mean, it requires almost military-grade intelligence briefings.
It really does. So to give you an overview, if you're listening, this blueprint comes from an outfit in Miami called 786 Music Publishing. And they outline this highly structured news desk approach to dance music.
Yeah, they treat it like financial news.
Exactly like financial news. For their first season, they're launching an installment titled State of the Underground, What is Moving Right Now? And they make this massive, bold promise to their readers. They are completely ignoring TikTok trends.
Which is huge right now. Everyone focuses on TikTok.
Right, and they're ignoring radio hits, too. They want to discover what actual working DJs are playing so they can figure out what sounds will define the dance floor, months before they ever hit the mainstream.
And their target runtime is so specific. They're aiming for 18 to 22 minutes of pure, urgent, editorial content. No fluff at all.
Zero fluff.
Like, it is framed exactly like a financial briefing or a geopolitical security update, but applied to, very specific subgenres of dance music.
Which is wild.
It is. If you're listening to this and you've ever wondered how some very specific weird sound suddenly just boom becomes popular on every pop station at once, this document is basically the roadmap to how that happens.
So our mission today is to completely deconstruct this blueprint. We want to understand exactly how these industry insiders track, analyze, and predict these fast-moving trends.
It's honestly a masterclass in trend forecasting.
It really is. And you can actually apply this to whatever industry you work in, which we'll get to later. But the first clue to how seriously they take this is their division of labor.
Right, the team structure.
Yeah, they assign very specific roles. So there's an analyst named James, and he's tasked with handling all the technical data. But then there's another analyst named Sarah, and her job is to cover the cultural context and scene reporting.
And that division of labor, that's the core engine of their entire operation. To understand how they predict the future, we really have to look at this dual-engine methodology they use for gathering intelligence.
Because you can't just look at one thing, right?
Exactly. Any successful forecast and model needs checks and balances. You cannot just look at a single metric and expect to understand complex human behavior.
So the blueprint uses two distinct lenses. First, you've got the technical data analysis side. The document dictates a rigorous deep dive into Beatport chart data.
Which we should probably explain for non-DJs.
Oh, yeah, right. So if you're not a DJ, Beatport is essentially the primary digital storefront where working DJs go to buy their tracks. They aren't looking at what, you or I are streaming on Spotify while we're folding laundry.
No, not at all.
They are looking at the professional tools that DJs are actively pulling out their credit cards to buy.
And that distinction changes everything about the data. Consumer streaming data just tells you what people are passively consuming in the background.
Yeah.
But Beatport data, that tells you what professionals are betting their weekend gigs on.
It's a totally different level of intent.
Exactly. It's a leading indicator of where the sound is physically moving in live spaces, long before an average listener even knows the song exists.
Okay, so alongside those massive spreadsheets, you have the second lens, which is the scene reporting and the cultural context layer. Like, what is the actual vibe in the clubs? What are the local communities saying in London or Berlin or Chicago?
Boots on the ground.
Right. And I look at this, and it immediately makes me think of Wall Street. You have the quantitative analyst running the numbers in the back, and then you have the field agents out talking to the people actually making the trades.
That's a great analogy.
But I do struggle with this a little bit, and I want to push back. Look at like Spotify or TikTok algorithms. They use pure, unadulterated, quantitative data metrics, and they predict hits perfectly. They know exactly what song to feed you next, and they do not care at all about cultural context or scene reporting.
Right, they just look at the math.
Exactly. So why does this Miami company think they can beat a purely algorithmic model? Like, why do they need boots on the ground if the Beatport data already shows what's selling?
Because algorithms are completely blind to motivation.
Oh, interesting. What do you mean?
Well, a chart might show a sudden, say, 40% spike in the sales of tracks with a specific, really aggressive BPM, which is beats per minute, the tempo of the song.
Okay, so the music is getting faster.
Right, that's the raw data. But an algorithm cannot tell you why people suddenly want to dance faster. The cultural context, the scene reporting, that explains the human motivation driving that darker, faster energy.
Ah, I see.
Maybe there's a broader cultural frustration in that specific city. Or maybe it's just a harsh backlash against the really polished, slow sounds from the previous summer.
So the data is basically the symptom and the culture is the diagnosis.
Exactly. If you just follow the algorithm, you only know what happened yesterday. You have a receipt of a transaction, sure, but you have no idea what human emotion actually caused that transaction.
Wow, yeah. Without the cultural context, you're just engaging in hindsight. You're just a guy pointing at a chart saying, look, the line went up.
Right. And that's not forecasting. When you pair the chart data with the scene reporting, that's when you achieve true forecasting. You start to understand the human behavior driving the numbers.
Which lets you guess what they're going to do next.
Exactly. It allows you to anticipate where that behavior will point next, way before an algorithm catches the next spike.
Okay, so if data diagnoses the current state of a genre, we really need to look at how this blueprint actually practically predicts what comes next. Because they don't just stay in these abstract theories of data versus culture.
No, they get extremely granular.
They do. They apply this dual methodology directly to a microscopic analysis of specific subgenres. They want to see what survives the filter, and the document calls this genre diagnostics.
I love that term. They are literally taking the temperature of specific sounds, beat by beat. It's like they treat genres as living organisms that require regular health checkups.
So first, it targets an Afro House report. And Afro House is this incredibly rich genre. It's very percussive, it's often vocal-driven, and it relies on these complex polyrhythms drawn from traditional African music.
It's beautiful, yeah.
So the blueprint dictates looking at the current state of this specific genre, the key releases, the artists to watch. And then it pivots to an update on Tech House. And the language they use here gets really ruthless.
Oh, yeah, very blunt.
It tasks the analysts with highlighting what is actively moving versus what has become stale.
And that word stale, that carries a massive amount of weight in an intelligence briefing like this. Tech House is a juggernaut of a genre.
Right, it's huge.
It's defined by these heavy, driving kick drums and very repetitive, hypnotic bass lines. It has literally been dominating major music festivals for years.
So when a massive genre like Tech House is labeled stale in an official briefing,
Right.
I really want to understand what that actually means mechanically. Like, is the genre itself dying out? Or is it just waiting for some new production technique to completely reinvent it?
That's the perfect question, and the blueprint actually answers it through its formatting. It specifically links genre health directly to production techniques.
Okay, how so?
Well, genres don't just magically die, they stagnate. Tech House becomes stale when 50,000 producers all download the exact same sample pack and copy the exact same formula.
So everyone just starts sounding the same.
Exactly. The bass lines start sounding identical. The energy in the club flatlines because the crowd has already heard the trick too many times.
It basically becomes a sonic echo chamber. The producers are just reacting to other producers instead of reacting to the crowd.
Exactly. And the genre only revitalizes when independent producers go back into the studio and actively innovate. They tweak the formula.
Right.
And this is why the document explicitly pairs a genre analysis with a weekly production tip. They're literally connecting the macro trends of this massive global genre to the micro choices made by a single person in a recording studio.
Okay, let's explore how that actually works in practice. How on earth does a single production tip fix an entire stale genre?
Okay, let's say the Tech House diagnostic identifies that the drums feel too robotic, right? And that's making the dance floor feel stiff.
People aren't moving right.
Exactly. So the production tip might focus on hi-hat placement. A hi-hat is that sharp, metallic cymbal sound you hear ticking away between the main beats.
Yes, yeah.
Right. If you place every single hi-hat perfectly on the grid in your computer program, it sounds like a machine. It's rigid. But if you take that hi-hat and manually drag it just a few milliseconds late, like a tiny fraction of a second behind the main beat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Suddenly the entire rhythm has this lazy rolling groove. It feels human again.
That is insane. You're telling me you can change the physical energy of a room of 3,000 people by shifting a hi-hat a literal millimeter on a computer screen.
Yes, absolutely. And you can take that a step further with something like bassline synthesis.
Which is making the sound from scratch, right?
Yeah. Exactly, using a synthesizer. If everyone is using this smooth, round bass sound because it's just the default preset on their software, the tip might show producers how to add subtle distortion or saturation to the low-end frequencies.
To make it punchier.
Exactly. It gives the bass this gritty, aggressive texture that cuts through the club sound system in a totally different way. So the briefing isn't just complaining that tech house is stale. It is actively identifying the specific studio techniques that innovators are using to break the mold.
They're reverse engineering the trend. They're telling their audience, hey, this track is popular because of how this producer delayed their hi-hats, and here's exactly how you can do it too. It's actionable intelligence for the creators themselves.
Which creates a massive feedback loop. By teaching producers how to escape that stale sound, the briefing itself actually helps push the genre forward. They aren't just observing, they are actively participating in the ecosystem they're analyzing.
Okay, so analyzing established genres like Afro House and Tech House gives them a really solid baseline. But the holy grail of trend forecasting in any industry really is spotting the anomalies, the emerging genres that are surging from the absolute underground before anyone else even notices.
Right, finding the next big thing. And the blueprint has a dedicated emerging genre alert baked right into its structure to catch exactly these kinds of anomalies.
Yeah, and the specific sounds it highlights are the continued surge of speed garage and UKG, which stands for UK Garage.
Which is having a massive moment.
It really is. And for anyone who, hasn't been in a sweaty London basement club recently, UK Garage is this fast, highly syncopated, super bass-heavy sound. It usually sits around 130 beats per minute.
And that syncopation is key.
Exactly. Syncopation means the heavy beats aren't landing where your brain naturally expects them to. They land offbeat, which essentially forces your body to move differently to catch the rhythm.
Yeah, you can't just nod your head to it the same way.
Right. But the blueprint emphasizes that the goal isn't just to announce, hey, UKG is surging. The directive is to explain why it matters to the broader electronic music ecosystem.
They want to know the climate shift, not just the local weather.
That's a perfect way to put it. I kind of think about emerging underground genres like the research and development department of a massive tech company.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so Speed Garage and UKG, they're down in the lab, right? They're testing these weird syncopated drum patterns on small crowds of a few hundred people. They're working out the bugs. They are beta testing the groove.
Testing what makes people move.
Exactly. And then once it's perfected, the major pop stars, like the Apples and Googles of the music world, they swoop in, take that underground beta test and commercialize it for 1 billion people. I mean, it's like tectonic plates shifting. The underground is the pressure point, and the pop charts are the earthquake years later.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. Tracking subgenres like UKG teaches us about the cyclical physics of cultural momentum, because the mainstream pop machine is always hungry for authenticity and edge.
Always.
But it is far too risky for a major pop star to just invent a new rhythm from scratch and potentially alienate their massive audience. So what do? Pop producers constantly mine the underground for inspiration.
You hear a weird drum pattern in a sketchy warehouse party, and literally 2 years later, it is the backbone of a chart-topping pop song on the radio.
Exactly. By the time a sound reaches the radio, it is already old news to the underground. So by monitoring these emerging genre alerts, this intelligence briefing is essentially offering a roadmap to the pop music of tomorrow.
It's a crystal ball.
It is. If UK Garage is surging on Beatport today, you can bet that in 18 months you are going to hear those exact same shuffling drum patterns on a mainstream pop record.
Okay, so when you step back and look at this entire machine they've built, you have Beatport data analysis, you have specific subgenre diagnostics separating them moving through the stale, you have emerging genre alerts, and highly technical studio production tips.
It's extremely comprehensive.
It is. And the document demands, quote, no wasted words and strict editorial discipline. It is a very tight ship.
Like we said, it's designed to be a fast-paced, authoritative news desk.
But And this is my favorite part of the whole document. Zooming out reveals this absolutely fascinating contradiction in the organization's overarching philosophy. At the very bottom of this document from 786 Music Publishing, below all their rigid formatting and the urgent directives, there is a company motto.
Oh, this is the best part.
The motto is simply, "The vibe is the only rule," all in caps.
It is quite the juxtaposition for a company acting like a financial intelligence desk.
I have been wrestling with this since the moment I read it. How on earth can you have an urgent, deeply analytical, strictly formatted intelligence briefing, one that demands quantitative data and chart analysis, where the ultimate guiding principle is something as completely intangible as the vibe?
It seems like an oxymoron.
It feels like putting a ghost in a spreadsheet. It makes no logical sense.
It seems contradictory, sure, until you connect this to the ultimate truth of any creative industry.
Okay, lay it on me.
You can build the most rigorous analytical framework in the world. You can track every single purchase on the Beatport charts. You can analyze the millisecond timing of every snare drum and every tech house track to figure out exactly why it's stale.
Right.
You can run a disciplined editorial news desk with military precision. But at the end of the day, music is fundamentally an emotional experience. It is just humans in a dark room moving to a rhythm.
So the data serves the vibe. The vibe doesn't serve the data.
Exactly. If the data points to a track being a mathematical hit, maybe it has the exact BPM that's trending, the exact bass line synthesis that everyone is buying, but it completely clears the dance floor because it lacks soul.
And the data is wrong.
The data is entirely useless. That intangible, unquantifiable human reaction is the final arbiter of what works.
So the rigid structure exists to protect the vibe.
Yes.
The discipline, the data analysis, all that is just scaffolding. It is the architecture required to basically capture lightning in a bottle. The intelligence briefing isn't trying to replace the vibe with data. It's using data to figure out where the vibe is currently living and where it's going to move next.
The vibe is the only rule means that if the analytics and the feeling on the dance floor ever disagree, you always defer to the dance floor.
That completely recontextualizes the entire blueprint for me. It is not a cold clinical document at all. It is a highly organized search party equipped with sophisticated radar, and they are out looking for magic.
That's exactly what it is.
So if you were listening to this, think about how you could apply this underground stories framework to your own interests. Think about the industry you work in or the hobbies you are passionate about.
It applies to almost anything.
It really does. Whether you are in tech, fashion, finance, or anything else, consider how you might combine hard quantitative data with qualitative boots-on-the-ground scene reporting to predict the future of your own field. Don't just look at the numbers, you have to look at the culture driving them.
And as you think about how to apply this dual engine approach, I want to leave you with something to consider. What happens in a scenario where the two metrics completely contradict each other?
Oh, okay.
Imagine your data, your spreadsheets, and your sales figures all scream that a particular trend is exploding. The numbers say it is unequivocally the next big thing. But the cultural vibe, the boots on the ground, tells a completely different story.
Like people just aren't feeling it.
Exactly. The scene feels stale, overly corporate, and totally devoid of authentic energy. If the math says yes, but the human spirit says no, which metric actually predicts the future?
Wow.
When the data and the culture go to war, which one should a true tastemaker trust?